Okay, it's 10 o'clock. I'm calling the Monday, October 4th, 2021 meeting of the P3 committee to order. I see no attendees, so I will forego reading the notice to the public. Let's jump right in. Personnel is up first. Old business update on Palomar College internship program.
All right, Chris.
So the good news that I have to report is that we had to come up with an agreement with Palomar College, and that means getting our attorneys, BB&K, and the attorneys over at Palomar College to agree on contract language. And usually the staff spend time passing documents back and forth. And I was told last week that Palomar's attorneys were okay with our modifications and that they would be sending Glenn an electronic signature document, probably via Adobe or something. So I have to jog Glenn's elbow to dig through his inbox and see if that actual electronic contract document got through to him okay.
It did. I got it on Friday, Chris.
Sounds good. So that was kind of one of the big hurdles. It's just getting that particular part done where we come to an agreement about how it'll operate and so forth, and the contract language. We did give, I did give Jacob like an advertisement for them to use for the specific position. So they have that. And so everything's moving forward.
That's great. Thank you for your work. I know going back and forth trying to hash out those contracts can be onerous sometimes. So great work getting that done. I'm looking forward to us signing it. And do you think we're still on track for perhaps getting?
That was a really specific deadline that they wanted. Was I think it was October 4th that they wanted to get that agreement signed by. And so
that's today.
Yeah,
Right.
well, it's okay. Glenn's got it.
Yeah, if I have it as soon as this
approved it.
meeting's done, I'll sign it.
Super.
Great work. I'm so pleased that that's moving along. I think that that will really benefit our community and especially the young people that we can bring in. Thank you. Anything else on that?
I don't think so.
No? Okay, great. Moving right along. Okay, public awareness. Update on the bill consolidation for large customers. So specifically the San Leo HOA. How's that going?
It's going well. So from a staff perspective, we've put together a sample bill that consolidated all of their accounts. We had some issues. Their name was listed different ways. And you know how databases can be. If you don't spell it exactly the same, it showed up differently. But we've reconciled all that. We've put all, I think it's 41 or 43 accounts. We've changed the name so it all shows up as the San Alejo Hills Homeowners Association. We created a sample bill. We're working with Lindsay and Company to schedule a meeting. I asked them if they could do it this week, but they, like us, they have meeting notification requirements, which they didn't think they could meet with their availability this week. So we're shooting for the beginning of next week to meet with them. When I say them, their HOA representative group, to share with them the bill consolidation, make sure it works for them, and then we can talk about next steps then.
That sounds great. Can you please make sure that I get an invite to that meeting as well? So this seems like if it goes well, that it could be a template for, the other large customers that we have. Is that reasonable? Is it feasible, or is it just, has it been really difficult to pull together?
No, well, yeah, it was a little bit difficult, but it's like anything, when you do it the first time, it's a little bit more difficult, but I think there's a lot of lessons learned. And I guess the question would be, do we want to be proactive about it, reaching out to the customers that have multiple accounts, or do we just want to be ready in the event that they reach out to us? And it doesn't matter to us one way or the other. We don't get these questions a lot, so I assume it's not a big deal to them, but maybe they just think it's not possible, so they don't even bother to ask. But we could maybe try to do some searching through the database and find out how many customers have multiple accounts that would even, how big is the universe? The problem we did run into is this: when accounts were created, they were named slightly different. So it made it difficult to find out all the meters that belong to one customer.
Okay. Good. I mean, it seems to me like it would be a value added service that we could provide, and there are larger customers. So you're right. Maybe they've just always done it one way and they don't know any different and they just plan around it.
Yeah.
But if it's the opportunity to save them time and money and could potentially save us time and money now that we've got the infrastructure at least built and we've been through it once, it seems like something that we should provide.
Yep. Yeah, I'll talk with Wes and his team to see how difficult it would be. My guess is that of our customer base, the city was the first one we did this for. Now we're doing it for San Alejo. That's probably our two biggest customers. But I know that there's other customers that have multiple meters, multiple.
Okay. Yeah, it's only a handful of customers that we're talking about, right?
Yep.
Okay, great. Okay, thank you. So you'll reach out then to Wes.
Yeah, I will. I'll reach out to Wes. The ball is in Lindsay's court right now in terms of getting back to me with dates and times. And when she gives me some dates and times, I'll coordinate with you, Director Boyd Hodgson, to see, check on your availability. And then we'll set up the meeting.
Okay, great. That's moving along. Great. The Vallecitos Scholarship Program, and I was a little unclear what our next steps were for that, but I think we just need to sort of identify and agree on the logistics of it, right?
Yeah, at the last meeting, staff had committed to doing some research. So Rhonda's going to give us an update.
Great, thank you.
Good morning. Yeah, so at the last meeting, I opened my big mouth and volunteered to do some surveys. And I just want to clarify that the purpose of the surveys wasn't necessarily to see what everyone else is doing. It was to hopefully fast track it and see what research they did, if they had any resolutions that we could, plagiarize. But so the good news is we did survey. We did find a couple agencies in our area that are doing scholarship programs. We also knew that CSDA had a video scholarship program, and it sounds like that's what started agencies going down a different path. They said, we want to do more than videos, as far as scholarships go. I also discovered.
I'm sorry to interrupt you, Rondi. What? Two things. One, you're kind of cutting in and out, and so sometimes it's hard to hear what you're saying. But secondly, what do you mean by a video scholarship? What does that mean?
So CSDA has a contest where they ask students to put together a video about what's the slogan, Chris? Why districts are different or special or some catchy slogan that I can't remember.
So catchy.
Yeah. It's so catchy. I can't remember.
Districts make the difference.
There you go. I was close. Districts, different, special, something. And I apologize for my microphone. I'm not sure what the issue is. I don't know if it's this webcam or what it is. So bear with me.
I see the palm tree sort of flowing in the breeze behind you. So that's just kind of what I assumed it was. I thought
maybe it's that palm tree. Next time I'll try it without that background and see if it helps. So I'm sorry, going back to what I was saying, I was hoping that if we could get some information from other agencies where they took a policy to their board or to their council, that it would make our job a little bit easier when it came time to develop our resolution. Unfortunately, I didn't have much luck in that regard, but I'm not too discouraged. I think it's just a matter of putting one together that meets our needs and the criteria that we developed for the program. So in short, both Helix and VID have internship programs. They are similar as far as they offer it to high school seniors.
Rondi, you said intern. Did you mean scholarship or intern program?
Sorry, scholarships. They request applications in the spring. Their criteria might be slightly different as far as like an application or an essay that they require. And then the checks are cut directly to the school. And I haven't chased down all the loose ends to see what kind of proof do they require from the students that are applying. It looks like Helix works directly through the high school, and has it set up with the counselors, so that might take some of the burden off of them. And Helix offers $1,000 for 2 high school seniors, but their criteria is you have to be in a 4-year program. And then VID offers up to a maximum of 6 scholarships. The minimum is $1,000 and the maximum is $3,000. And then, like I said, the check goes directly to the school, and it can also be a vocational school. It doesn't have to be a 4-year college. So that's just the brief information I got from the surveys. And once we decide how we'd like to structure our program, we can get started on developing the language and running it by BB&K. That's the part I was hoping would be easier, is that someone else already did it and here's what legal says about it, but we're going to have to run it through our attorneys anyway.
And directors, if I can add onto that, it's kind of in my mind, it's a 2-step process. One is determining eligibility, right? What is the scholarship for? So that, and if people can meet that eligibility, then they can be in the running. And the other part is the selection criteria. So Rondi mentioned something before, like about videos, or there could be essays. Those could be used to determine of the applicants that are eligible, who gets it. Because there's always some resource limitations, right? I'll make up these numbers because the board hasn't taken an action, but let's say the board wanted to put $10,000 towards a scholarship program. We may get so many people interested that there's $20,000 or $30,000 of requests in there. So we'd have to go through some selection process. So and part of Rondi's research would be helpful to figure out what selection criteria or process did these other agencies use if your demand is greater than the supply of funds that you have.
Right. I think that, I do like the idea of opening it to San Marcos High School students, but also, there's, we're partnering right now with Palomar, and they have a water program. So those folks might need some money too. So, rising freshmen that are going to go to a 4-year, or folks that are interested in going to Palomar to participate in their water program. I think, off the top of my head, those are the things that I think would be a good application of the scholarship money. We do have, and to me, it's kind of a top-down process where we decide the logistics first, and then we decide what the criteria are. Because, knowing what the amount of money is that we want to spend, and also realizing that we didn't budget for that this year, but perhaps next year we can. So thinking about that seems like that's the next step. So deciding what the sort of the parameters around the scholarship are, and which schools are eligible to participate, and whether if we are giving the money to a high school senior that's going to go to a 4-year, they can take that money with them, or we work with, do we work with the folks that are applying, or do we work with the schools? I think that's also a question to be answered. And I'm not sure that it has to be either or. It could be a combination of both, but it sounds to me like we just really need to sort of think about what the details are. And it sounds like we've got a couple of examples that Rondi mentioned in her research, and thank you for doing that research and collecting that information, that we can at least get a jumping off with, and then modify. What I think would have been helpful is if that information would have been included in the board packet so that we could review it. So why don't we do this for the next P3 committee? Let's see what you come across, like with Helix, and I think, did you say Vista Irrigation?
Yep. Sort
of what they have in writing, so that we can have a look at it and see what they have and use that as a jumping off point. And then let's, I don't know if we want to do this during this next meeting, or if this is something that we tackle during our strategic planning session. I don't know, but it sounds to me like we really need to workshop it so that we can talk about and think about what are all the steps, who's it for, how much money, which schools are included, what the criteria are, and just really sort of bang it out.
Okay, yeah, we can do that. We'll be prepared for the next P3. Well, we may touch on it at the strategic planning workshops on Thursday, but if we don't, we'll be ready for the next P3 with some more information, and not just the summary of the research we've done, but maybe some recommendations from staff in terms of which students at which schools, and it'll probably be the 4 high schools in our area, and then which schools would they be eligible for? So maybe Cal State, Palomar College, and possibly Cuyamaca, because they have a really good water program. And my recommendation would be at any of those 3 higher education schools that they have to be in some kind of a related major, right? It's got to be in the water, wastewater industry. It's not for an art student or, nuclear physicist. It's for people in the water and wastewater industry.
Yeah,
That's just my recommendation.
Yeah, I think that's a generally very good guidance, and we can start there, and then we can just figure out what the logistics are.
Okay.
Okay, thanks for your work on that, Rodney. That's great. I'm happy to see that moving along. And if we do touch on this during the strategic planning meeting, Director Hernandez was wanting to participate in this, so we can get his input at that time too, and make sure if he had a vision for this, then we can incorporate what that vision is.
Sounds good. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Okay, anything else on that?
No.
Okay, imagine a day without water. What are we doing, and how are we going to imagine that day?
Have a couple irons in the water. Lisa reached out to Mayor Rebecca Jones. She's willing to be in a little video for us, showcasing some of the things she's done around her own property, and then also Lisa storyboarded out some humor for it too. Like one of the big things to do to save water is to have a full load of laundry or a full load of dishes in your dishwasher. And then I think the joke on that one is, let's not put them in the same thing. So don't put your dishes in the washing machine or something like that. So some clever things to put together, and should be ready by October 21st. And then separately, worked with my counterpart Tess over at the city of San Marcos. Tess is also the one that coordinated to get us the room over at city of San Marcos. So I sort of owe her a favor, but we're getting a proclamation done by city of San Marcos on, I think, October 12th, like at 6. And hopefully it sounds like President Sanella can be over at that meeting to receive the proclamation, and I'll snap some photos and we'll post it on social media and so forth.
So the proclamation is around what? That we're celebrating a day without water?
Yeah.
Okay. Why are we having our mayor and not someone from Vallecitos in the video?
Lisa kind of came up with that as an idea, and we were a little surprised that she'd be willing to do it. But city of San Marcos is a big part of our service area, probably the lion's share. And that's what she was able to work out. So it seems like a good thing for us to put out, and it should, hopefully we'll get a lot of likes for us.
Yeah, I'm not really that crazy about that. I think we have folks that we could have featured that are on our board, for example. How far down the path are they with that video?
We haven't done anything on the video yet. The proclamation's set up.
Yeah. Yeah, I think we should revisit that idea. I think that we have probably folks that, even maybe our contest winners for our landscaping, or, if we have other board members that have done things to their house. I think that that's a better choice. So I think that I would like to do that instead. I am going down the path of setting up a cistern, but I don't think it'll be ready by October 21st, unfortunately, or I would volunteer. You could film my house. But I think using somebody on our board for, to promote that rather than our mayor is a better idea.
Okay, I'll work with Chris on that then.
Okay, thank you. Okay. And if you want, I can reach out to Lisa, or we can have a follow-up discussion about it. But I just think that, featuring, since we're Vallecitos, I think featuring someone that is on our board or is a contest winner is more appropriate than reaching out to the city. And I know we work with the city, but I think that, this is how Vallecitos celebrates or promotes a day without water. And I think that we should use somebody from the district or a contest winner or on our board rather than San Marcos.
And who's the audience on this, and how's the platform getting out? Because that might be part of it.
So imagine a day without water is basically a nationwide event, trying to get people to imagine what it would be like to have a day without water. And we've done some humorous ones. We've reached out to some of the local businesses. We had a video where we're over at Sorrento's Pizza, where they can't boil the spaghetti because there's no water, where the brewery, I forget which one, I think it's
Los Desperados.
it was Los Desperados, and they serve up to some of our engineering staff beers that are just the grains and the hops. They're not fluid,
But if I'm just a regular old resident in San Marcos, how am I going to be made aware of this?
So they're posted on social media and on our webpage and on our YouTube page.
Okay.
So it's, the purpose is to, and I'll add, this is something that is a One Water initiative by the U.S. Water Alliance, which I hope that we at some point can revisit joining that organization since we're participating in their program. It's to promote just how important water is to our daily life. How do we imagine a day without water? What impact would that have on our lives? So
that I'm just trying to think, if I'm just a regular resident, get up in the morning at 8, go to my 8 to 5 job, and I come home, I'm just just a regular San Marcos resident. How am I going to be affected by this, or how am I even? Is it going to be on like you said, it's going to be on social media sites and things like that? I mean, is there a way to track? I mean, I just don't. To be honest, I don't want to go through a ton of work, ton of effort, and we have 23 people that have viewed this video, because I mean, it's interesting to us, to be honest. Yeah, it's fun. There's some humor in it, but who's going to be watching a 3-minute video of Sorrento's, boiling pasta without water? I mean, is it? I just, what I'm saying. I just want to be realistic about it.
Chris, do we have any metrics?
Go ahead.
I was just going to say, do we have any metrics from our previous ones in terms of viewership?
I could certainly look it up. In fact, we did a one with Manisha, I think a couple years ago. She's a Vallecitos customer who grew up in India, along with her and her son, and kind of the difference between what it's like in the United States, where water's just everywhere and you just turn it on and it comes on. And she was basically pointing out that at certain times, that they had a week without water, that you wouldn't have it, and even like the water pressure and how you didn't get the same water pressure in India. You'd shower and it would essentially be a trickle.
How did that get out to people though? That was just on our Vallecitos. So it's just those people that were watching.
Social
media, it's great. I love I would be interested in it. It would be interesting. I'm just trying to think of 90% of the rest of the residents and how they would be drawn to that video and how it would affect them. That's why I was thinking, like you said, Director Boyd Hodgson, is that might help with having the mayor do that, just because she has a large following already. There's a large city website, and if you attach her name to it, it might create more attraction. Then everybody loves Glenn, but if you say Glenn Prume's got this cool video out, it's about, I just don't know if he's going to have the following that So that's what I'm just trying to create some traction, and who's going to be interested in this besides employees and staff and friends of Vallecitos Water District, who most residents aren't, to be honest, interested. They're interested in turning on water and making sure it's clean, and when they flush, it goes out. And how do we get that 80% of San Marcos interested in watching this day without water video vignettes, whatever you want to call them. So I was just trying to see how we can get some more traction. And it like Director Prum said, General Manager Prum said, is there any metrics from last year as how many people actually clicked on that cool thing? And
I can go research it, but I don't have the numbers in front of me.
But it is available?
Yeah. And part of the value of the mayor's office is I just spoke about Tess, and she would share it on the city of San Marcos's website and their social media. So there's juice there.
Okay. That's what I wanted to see. Okay. So there is, we've got some traction there with some cross. Okay. So it's on a city website, it's on a Vallecitos website, it's somewhere out there that people can click on it. Okay. Thanks. Sorry to kind of go off.
No,
Yeah,
actually,
I appreciate that, but I also want to be careful. I don't want our video, Imagine a Day Without Water, to be used as a political campaign to support Mayor Jones's reelection. So I think that we should, I think, that's the elephant in the room, right? So I think that we should figure out a way, and the city of San Marcos can still feature our video. There's nothing that says that they can't. However, I think that we need to maybe feature some of our contest winners or create a video around what we do as a water district. If we're going to create a video around what we do as a water district that would really impact people's day without water. That means people couldn't flush their toilets. That means people couldn't cook, like sort of what we've done in the past. So I think that's the direction we need to go.
Maybe we can combine the two, the scholarship program and the Day Without Water. Those wanting a scholarship can submit a little video, and the top 3 winners get a scholarship because we can combine those two.
It's pretty quick. It's coming up pretty quick. It's October 21st.
Oh, is that what
So I like that thinking. I think I like the idea of the scholarship folks submitting a video. I think that would be fun to watch and much easier to review than a 10-page essay for each of the applicants.
Yes.
For sure.
For both parties.
But Imagine a Day Without Water. I think that we need to look internally, look at our contest winners, talk about what we do as a district that would facilitate water. And if we didn't have water for a day, what impact that would have on people's lives.
I guess a couple points. We don't have another policy committee between now and then. Chris, I'm not sure schedule wise, you said we haven't started shooting video or anything yet, but we've done storyboarding. We've spent some time going in a particular direction. What impacts would this change have on our schedule?
I'll have to figure that out. I was starting to go down a path, and I'm not going down that path anymore. So we'll have to make an adjustment.
Well, I think going forward, whenever we talk about doing something as a group and it has political implications like that, it needs to be discussed before it's gone down the path. I think that is important. So I'm sorry that this creates sort of a wasted effort, but this is something that should have been discussed.
And I apologize if I'm wrong, but I believe I brought it up at the last P3 committee meeting, but I'll just have to check.
Okay, so the next steps then are, and maybe we can just talk about it over email, exploring different options.
Surely.
Okay, thank you. Okay, moving on to the lobby display. And I've seen the Jeep. I saw the Jeep on the tour. It's a very cool Jeep and it does not look as old as it is. So let's talk about the lobby display.
So I think you both got a chance to see it, and it's a tight fit to get in. I think we'll have to take the mirrors off on it, but previously had broached the idea of putting it in the lobby, and it did not get approval by the board of directors, and there was thoughts about just selling it. And I believe because it's not, at this point, it's not really 100% authentic 1945 or whatever year it was vehicle. It's had some additional newer parts put on it. It doesn't have the same value. So you could probably get, I think the estimate was around 9,000 for it, which, you know, sounds like a lot of money to you and me, but for the district, it's a lot less money. And part of the reason I wanted to put it in the lobby was, you know, we had offices over on San Marcos Boulevard. We used to be called the San Marcos County Water District. We've had employees that worked here and board members that worked here and general managers that worked here, and they all sort of gone. A lot of our history is just gone. And this is the one thing that we still have that's part of our history. And to just auction it off, kind of, it hurts a little bit. I'd really like to put it in the lobby. The other option was that we could give it to, we could donate it and give it to
Historical Society.
Tanis Brown out at San Marcos History. But they don't really have a place for it at this time. And I've talked about that with them for 3 years, and they've never been able to take it. And so it just continues to sit in the same spot under a tarp in the mechanics bay. And I'm not sure if the mechanics mentioned it, but it's in their way.
So I think I'm missing something. We as a board, because I don't remember saying that we didn't want this in the lobby.
Oh, Director Boyd Hodgson, this was probably 3 or 4 years ago.
Oh, well, but we're talking about it now as if it's a new issue, right? So
what I'm requesting is that maybe I bring a board action and with the committee's recommendation of approval to put it in the lobby.
And Chris,
I'm
correct me if
fine
I'm
with
wrong,
that.
I don't think we ever took a formal action item to the board. It was just kind of the feedback we were getting from the board at the time. So it may be good to revisit it, and maybe I'll call it once and for all, right? If this board doesn't want to do it, then maybe we figure out a way to dispose of the Jeep or find some other use for it. I had talked with Chris about maybe putting the Jeep on the outside of the building in a visible place. The problem is the elements will just deteriorate it over time. So the good thing about the lobby is it's protected. It'll last longer. But if the committee's okay with it, we'll bring something forward to the board. And as we talked before, I think the Jeep is just one piece of it. We want to use the lobby for other elements as an educational piece for our customers when they come in. I don't think it's ever going to be a destination. People aren't going to come to our building just to see the Jeep, but if they're here paying bills or working with engineering and they're in the lobby, there's a lot of displays we could put out there that would give people a better indication of what it is we do. As we mentioned on the tour, most of our stuff is underground. So people don't get a sense for what these things are that we work on, but we spend a lot of money on them. So to try to bring that stuff up out of the ground and put it as a display in the lobby is the bigger picture, and the Jeep may be a component of that. But the Jeep obviously is the single biggest physically asset that would be in the lobby. So probably it's worthy of some special attention at the board level.
I love that idea. And I'm really, I appreciate that you clarified that I didn't take a vote and then vote against this, because I would not have voted against that. I really like this idea. I think it's a great one. So I'm okay with bringing it forward to the board. I think that's a good idea. And let's move it out of the mechanics bay. I mean, Director Pennock and I saw exactly where it is, and it does look like it would be, it's taking up valuable real estate in their space. And I think it's a great opportunity. I mean, I can see, moms with kids that have to come pay their bill. If they pay their bill that way, they get their kids excited. We're going to go see the Jeep, and it helps them out as they're trying to pay their bill or whatever they're doing in the lobby. But it also, it provides a little piece of our history, and that's important. So I'm perfectly fine with that.
I appreciate that so much. Director Pennock, would I be able to say that the committee here approved the recommendation?
I'm on board 100%. Everything, that was said. Amen.
Okay, anything else to add to that?
I don't believe so.
I think that space has a lot of potential, and displaying, even some, when Director Panic and I were taking the tour, we saw we saw a waste bin with discarded meters. So, even taking some of the stuff that's already on its way out, having that in there, not necessarily that, but, here's an example of a meter. And I think we've talked about this. Here's what your meter looks like. Here's how it's read. Just to educate the public, I think is a really good idea. And it's a great use of that space, the space that's otherwise not being used very efficiently. During COVID, there's not a lot of opportunity for people to use it, but eventually we're going to get past the quarantine and the pandemic. So we could have that as a really great space. And depending on, how it grows, maybe there is some opportunity to get recognition as, a historic place or a museum, or I don't know exactly how that works, but it would, that's something that we can cross that bridge when we come to it. But I think it's a great idea. Okay, new business utility rate change communication plan.
Yeah, this is an item that Director Boyd Hodgson, you asked that I put on the agenda. So I'm not exactly sure what you want to address, but I'd be happy to share whatever knowledge I have regarding your issue.
Sure. So thank you. So Director Pinnock and I were just at a conference, the Special Districts Leadership Academy, and one of the things that they in one of the workshops that we sat through was about communicating often and early with constituents about potential rate changes. And so I wanted to just put this on everyone's radar that, to try to sort of figure out, well, how are we going to prime the pump, so to speak, or how are we going to, what's our communication strategy? What's the timeline? I didn't expect you to have it today, of course, because it was not clear what this item was, but just to be thinking about ensuring that we're communicating early and we're communicating often, and we're also communicating the value of what this means when we have to propose changing rates. Why do we do that? What types of infrastructure is failing that we really need to focus on and replace, and things like that. So I just wanted to put it on here to number one, just get it on people's radar to start thinking about. But I also wanted to find out, what has been done in the past, because that I didn't know the answer to that. So maybe thinking back on years past, what have we typically done?
Yeah, so primarily we comply with the law at a bare minimum, right? So as you go through, in Proposition 218 governs the changing, increasing of rates, both water and wastewater. And they do require that you provide the community that's affected with a 45-day notice before the board takes an action. So we just call that that's the Prop 218 process, right? So before that process starts, staff is doing a cost of service study to determine what are our revenue requirements. Do we need to increase rates? If we did, how would those costs be fairly allocated amongst our customer base? And then we prepare a document that is the notice. So there needs to be a formal legal notice that goes out to all the customers. It gets mailed to all of them. It gets posted. And that document includes a lot of what you're talking about, Director Boyd Hodgson. So it explains not just what the rate increases are going to be, but why. And then that goes out and that starts a 45-day minimum process. After that 45 days, you hold what's called the majority protest hearing. And that is the public's opportunity to come in and voice their opposition. They can come to a meeting physically in a pre-COVID world. They could come in a teleconference meeting, which is what's happening in the COVID world, or they can write in a letter to express their disapproval or approval of the votes. And then at the meeting, at the actual meeting, we tally the votes to see if there was a majority protest. So we have 22,000 plus or minus customers. We would need to receive over 11,000 expressions of displeasure. So people either have to show up, email. Well, right now we don't take email, but I think the courts are starting to say emails may or may not be as good as a letter. But right now it has to be a letter or coming to a meeting and indicating no. There's never been a successful majority protest meeting, but it is a requirement that you have to conduct it. One of the not frustrations, one of the complications we've had with the Prop 218 notice, it's always a struggle about the content and the length of it. We've always tried to keep it as simplified and as streamlined as possible, but still give the public good information. So for example, you don't want to send out a 20-page document explaining to people what's going to happen to the rates. Nobody will read it. So you try to keep it usually we try to do 4 pages. So it's front and back of 2 sheets, some way you can fold it, make it relatively concise. But that gets challenging because you're talking about not just what the rates are, how they were calculated, how it affects individual customers, but the bigger part, and I think is what we were getting at, is the justification. Why do we feel we need to do it? Now, having said all that, that's the legal requirement, the Prop 218 process. That doesn't mean there can't be a lot of other things. That's the legal minimum. So if the board wanted us to have, we could have additional workshops beyond the Prop 218 majority protest hearing. We could have social media and website information, and all of the information ultimately gets on the website leading up to the meeting. So the public has access to the information, but so love to hear your guys' thoughts. It is becoming timely because we're getting close to wrapping up our cost of service study, which would be the last step prior to starting to put together our Prop 218 notice, which would start that 45-day process. So with that, I'll turn it over to the committee and see what thoughts you have.
Director Pinnock, anything?
Well, I mean, to be honest, I'm coming into this new. You've done this for many, many times for many, many years. It's worked. I mean, if there's anything we can do to make it more efficient, more cost effective, yeah, let's visit those options. But no, it sounds like you know exactly which way you want to go and how it's worked in the past. And there's no reason I would come in and want to rock the boat. It seems like you're doing everything right.
Yeah, I would say definitely it works. I guess it depends on your definition of works, right? We've never been challenged. Nobody's said that we didn't comply with Prop 218. You're always going to find some people at the end of the day that aren't happy that the rates are going up, right?
Right.
But the world we live in, that's going to happen. For the foreseeable future, water rates are going to be going up because the supplies are costing so much more, and the supplies are 60 to 70% of the water bill.
Are we talking just water and not wastewater?
Well, right now, the cost of service study is water only. We think we can absorb any cost increases on the wastewater side with the given rate structure that we have. Having said that, we think in the coming future, that's not the case. So in year 1 of the cost of service study, there may be no increase in wastewater, but there will be increases as time goes on. The Prop 218 laws apply to both water and wastewater.
Well, I'm just saying that because I think that's a good angle to go. You know what, our wastewater is going to stay the same.
Yeah, and
we do have to raise one, but at least it just seems easier to swallow for the general public. It's like, okay, at least I can swallow the water side, but if we raise both of them at the same time, that would seem like that might get a little more exciting.
Yeah, and that's a great example because I think that's exactly what happened in our last rate increase. We increased the water by maybe it was around 6%. We didn't increase the wastewater. So when we communicated to people, we said, hey, if you're a customer of both water and wastewater, half of your bill, and I'll say half, one portion of your bill doesn't increase. So we would tell people the net impact. We would say, hey, your water bill is going to go up this much. Your wastewater is not going up at all. And if you're a typical single family customer, here's the net effect of that on your utility bill. So maybe water went up 6%, wastewater didn't go up at all. So maybe your average bill, your total bill is going to go up by 3.5% or 4%. So that's the kind of information we would share. We break it down to pretty great detail. We say, hey, if you're a single family homeowner with a 3/4 inch meter, here's what your fixed service charge is today, and here's what we propose it to be, and here's what your commodity costs are, and here's what we project it will be. And if you're an average single family customer with a 3/4 inch meter, we think this would be the impact on your bill. There's so many permutations and combinations that you can't tell everybody their situation. So we always kind of focus on this typical single family customer for comparison purposes. Another thing we do as part of the Prop 218 process that goes into the notice is we do a rate comparison. We look at the other water and wastewater providers in our service area or in the region, and we compare what their rates are, and we show where we are in comparison to those rates. Some people care, some people don't, but it's good information, not just for the customers, but for the board to see how do we stack up against I'll call it the competition, although they're not really competition, right? It's local monopolies. Livenhain can't come in here and service our customers in our service areas, but it's nice to know what the customers' rates or our competitors' rates are. But what I started to say is obviously we have to comply with the legal requirements, but if the board wanted us to go over and above on the outreach, happy to do that.
I think it's important to strike a balance and, not knowing what has been done in the past. And it's also important to follow the law. We must do that. I think, I don't want to make a lot more work for anyone, but I think that making sure that we're very clear about what the rate increase is buying and the need for upgrading some of our infrastructure and what happens if we don't upgrade that infrastructure is really important. Just really trying to pull through the value. Because I imagine you've never done a cost of service study that didn't call for a rate increase, right? And that's like a given. The cost of things goes up year over year. The general public likes to think that maybe rates and property taxes and water infrastructure that will stay the same. And sometimes it does, depending on who's on the board, right? But my guess is you've never done a cost of service study that didn't call for a rate increase. Is that right?
Well, we have on the wastewater.
I'm here for it. Let's hear it.
On the wastewater side. So
on the wastewater side.
Everyone I've done has called for increases on the water side because our single biggest cost goes up beyond our control, right? We have to buy water from the county water authority, and that's always going up, and we simply can't absorb it. I think it's been 4 going on 5 years that our wastewater rates have been relatively flat or flat. So that's great. And we do everything we can to avoid it. But at some point in time, like you mentioned, Director Boyd Hodgson, it catches up with you, right? Those costs are going up. We've had an ability to contain some of our other costs and to offset some of the cost drivers. And on the wastewater side, it's mostly the Encina Wastewater Authority costs, electrical costs, chemical costs, all of these things that are external that we can't control, but we look for internal efficiencies to offset those. And we've been able to do that for quite some time on the wastewater side, which was included in a previous cost of service study. And the cost of service study said, you don't need to increase your wastewater rates. I expect that the answer will be different going forward because we can't, we're probably going to be looking for a 4-year rate study, or we are going to be looking for that. So which will say the board will take an action once, which will govern the rate increases over the next 4 to 5 years. I don't think we'd be able to keep our wastewater rates flat for that entire horizon.
Okay.
So the law does limit you to 5-year rate increases. You can't look any further than 5 years into the future.
Okay, thanks for that. That's helpful.
You're welcome.
Okay, well, I guess I just wanted to find out what we've done in the past, and the action item is kind of squishy, but just, ensuring that we're really communicating with the public the need for upgrading infrastructure and, using things like, some of our pipes are X number of years old. They have a lifespan of X, Y, Z. Yeah. And again, not calling to mind exactly what you've done in the past. You may have already been doing that, but I just wanted it to be on your radar. And I think a special emphasis on what the public is buying would be really helpful rather than them just saying, another increase.
Yeah, message received. And we do. Typically, we explain the reasons. And we'll continue to do so. Okay. I think our biggest challenge, and Chris can probably back me up on this, whether it's utility bills or something else, our biggest challenge is how do you reach the public? We try to come up with a lot of different ways. One of the things we do is bill stuffers, but we also try to get people to pay their bills electronically. So a lot of people don't even open up their bills. I don't. I have auto bill pay. I never open up my Vallecitos bill. It just gets paid automatically. So all of our efforts to try to educate are lost on certain people. So we look at other things, the website, social media, but that's almost assuming people are looking for information. They're going to our website, they're getting on social media sites. So trying to find people in general is difficult. But that's a separate problem. Having said that, once we try to address that problem, we need to make sure that the information that we have out there is accurate and helpful to the customers. Chris, I don't know if you want to add anything to that.
No, you did it really well. And back when we started doing the Work We Do videos, that was, a big reason why we were doing that, was to show people, explain to them what it is that we do here at the district.
Yeah, okay.
But I think, we talked about it on the previous item about the metrics. We can go back and look at some of those things, and sometimes they're a little dismal, right? We put a lot of work, and Chris's team does an awesome job putting these videos together, and the viewership just isn't there. So trying to find ways to improve that viewership is, we're always looking for that, but most people, quite honestly, aren't looking to see what Vallecitos is doing today. But we'll continue to do the best that we can.
Okay, thank you. Anything else on that topic?
Nope.
Okay, moving on to policy, new business, single-use plastics resolution. So on October 12th, I believe, there will be an ordinance coming before the San Marcos City Council about single-use plastics. I was hoping to have a draft of that ordinance to share with you today. I don't have it. So this is going to be a little bit anticlimactic. But I think, what my vision for this is, irrespective of whether or not that ordinance passes, I think it's a good idea for Vallecitos to have, we obviously don't make laws, we don't make resolutions, but having we don't pass ordinances, but having something that generally says Vallecitos is in support of reducing single-use plastics for our oceans is a good idea. It would be helpful if it could sort of be supportive of what's going to come before the city, but maybe, maybe I'll wait until I have that draft, and, it can be very general if the ordinance doesn't pass through the city, or it can be, in support of that ordinance if it does pass through the city. I think we can do it either way. But I don't have the draft for you today. I was going to share it with you. And I know Director Hernandez was also wanting to be involved in this, but so I wanted to let you all know that I'm still working on that. But I think it's something that would be generally good for us to do. We as a water district should be in support of reducing single-use plastics because they end up in our ocean. Microplastics end up in our ocean. And it's very harmful to our planet and the fish and to us. So that's where we are with that new business item. I guess I'm sort of saying maybe we will table it because we can't, there's not really an action item that falls on this committee outside of, me getting the draft and then bringing it forward.
Yeah, and maybe if I can add, Director Boyd Hodgson, Director Hernandez has been kind of a champion of this for a while. He raised this several years ago, and we've taken some proactive steps. For example, we used to put out like red Solo cups at the board meetings that the directors would use. We don't do that anymore. We give the directors the refillable bottles. We used to give out plastic water bottles. We stopped doing that, and we actually purchased a supply of those drinking water in cardboard boxes. I forget the name of the company that did it, but we were trying to get away from plastics. We were going to provide those on the tour. So remember at the tour, we handed out plastic bottles. We were going to use the cardboard ones, but we realized that they had expired. Because of COVID, we haven't been going through the supplies. Yep. And the supply we had expired. So we had to resort to plastic bottles, but we'll be replenishing our supplies when we think we're going back to a regular mode of operation. We do still buy in the warehouse. You'll see a lot of plastic water bottles, and we're going to continue to do that. And the reason we have those is for when we have water main breaks. We'll often put water out at the site of a water main break because people are out of service. So we want to make sure people have access to safe drinking water. So we'll put that out there. The reason we didn't go with the cardboard boxed water for those was cost. It was so much more expensive than the plastic water bottles. And I think like 90% of our times that we used the packaged water was for water main breaks. and we provided the board with an estimate of what the cost increase would be. And the board said, okay, for day-to-day activities, let's go away from plastic bottles, but let's have some on hand in the event of water main breaks to provide for the customers. So, and there's a few other things that we've done on the minimizing the plastics. We looked into replacing our single-use plasticware at the building with like compostable or alternative supplies. So we've started down that path, but I'd really like, it's really, to me, it's the cities and the county and the state that we can look to them for the guidance, because they drive out the regulations that control it. And so I'd be curious to see not only what the results of the election for the city of San Marcos on that item is, but what their ordinance says. And I think we can learn a lot from it.
Yeah, agreed. I think I think it's important that we're very clear that this is a resolution in support of an idea.
Right.
And I'm glad that Vallecitos has already taken steps and measures. But it's nice to have it in writing. It's nice because it says this is what our values are. You know, we value this as an organization. So let's table this for now. And I will try to see what I can do about getting a draft of that ordinance. And then we can draft something that is either generally supportive of the idea and also consistent with that ordinance, or not, and just generally supportive of the idea. I think we can be flexible, but having it in writing as something that we stand for is, I think, important. Okay, I think we are finished, right? Is that it? Any other comments? Did we finish within an hour? That's pretty good.
Maybe just one update if I can. So I don't remember if I said it at a previous meeting, but we have executed the agreement with Bill Dean for the outreach efforts, and he's in the process of identifying both a school and a teacher at that school to initiate the activities. And Director Boyd Hodgson or Director Pennick, if you have any suggestions or thoughts, pass them along to me, and I'll make sure that Bill incorporates those into his outreach efforts. And the whole plan is to try to start it in as soon as possible. So he wants to identify a school and a teacher, and then initiate the activities with the goal of completing the program by the end of this the school's calendar year.
That's fantastic news. My preference is that he seek out a public school as opposed to a charter school or a public charter school, that he seek out a public school. Charter schools have a number of issues with their accountability and their the way that they operate, and that not everyone has access to charter schools, some in our district. And I would really like for this to be available to just, regular kiddos that are in the district. So my strong preference is that it go to a public school. And if we can, if it can be a school that is considered underserved, that would be even better. I don't know what the interest is amongst the teachers. I know that will limit where he can go, but my strong preference is that he identify a public school first before, and exhaust those possibilities in San Marcos before going to a private or a charter school.
Yeah, all the conversations I've had with Mr. Dean, it's been a school in the San Marcos Unified School District service area. So it's one of their schools.
Good.
He's targeting 5th grade is the age range that he prefers. So now he just needs to find a principal and a teacher that are willing to support the program.
Okay, well, I'm certainly happy to reach out to the principal at my child's school.
And if you like, and if you want to pass any information along, he'd appreciate that, any kind of direction on that. Otherwise, he knows it's under his scope to do it, but if there's a preference or a path of least resistance, he's always happy to find that as well.
Great. Okay, that's great news. Thank you for following up on that.
You're welcome.
Okay, anything else before we adjourn?
It's still before 11 o'clock. So that's
okay. The next meeting is November the 1st. Thank you all for your time. Thank you for your work. There was a lot of effort that went into this meeting, and I appreciate that. So we will see you November 1st, if not sooner.
All right.
Okay. Thank you, everyone.
Bye,
Take
everyone.
care.